This CU podcast segment is sponsored by NordVPN. It's what I use to keep myself safe online, and you can too. If you care about the security and the privacy of your online presence, you should definitely check out NordVPN. I've used NordVPN when accessing public Wi-Fi when I've traveled, at a restaurant, or even at home when I just want internet privacy.
NordVPN has tons of features and benefits. They have thousands of super fast servers in 60 plus countries. They don't use any data logging whatsoever. Android and iOS apps exist to keep your mobile browsing experience secure, and they have 24/7 customer support. It uses military-grade encryption, and there is a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee.
Right now, you can get a huge discount on a 2-year NordVPN plan at nordvpn.com/CUpodcast. And when you use our code CUpodcast, you get an additional month for free. Again, that's nordvpn.com/CUpodcast for a huge discount on a 2-year plan, and pop in that CU Podcast code for an extra month free. Take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. Ian,
Pat.
a momentous occasion.
Momentous.
The Legend of Zelda celebrates its 35th anniversary. The Legend of the Zelda, 35th anniversary. So Legend of Zelda came out originally on the Famicom Disk System. And obviously everyone in our audience came out February 21st, 1986. Mostly everyone here got it in 1987 when it came out in North America. Unless we have someone in Japan that is listening to us. And it to me, try not to use hyperbole. Super Mario Brothers started this. It sort of fulfilled the promise to me of what a video game could be without me realizing it, if that makes sense. At
Sure.
the time. Prior to 87, 86, 85, because the NES was still barely in anyone's hands, video games still had this sort of simplistic, not all, but most, 95% had a simplistic, quick gameplay quality to them, where they were based upon quick reactions, ramping up difficulties to unfair degrees fairly quickly, because they're all based on arcade game mechanics, and not having a real story to tell. It's just, hey, you're a guy in a spaceship shooting people.
Hey, guy.
Hey, you're a gnome or a spaceship shooting spiders and a centipede coming at you. We don't know that. We don't care. Hey, you're shooting asteroids. Hey, the most heavy we'll get is that, hey, you're defending cities from ICBMs, from some weird nuclear holocaust that might happen. That's the story you got. Yes, there were some exceptions. But for the most part, that's what you got, because that's all what could have been communicated through a game console. There wasn't a huge amount you could do. There was one-offs, like Quest for the Rings on the Odyssey 2. And yes, you did have some early PC games, like some of those early Ultima games that try to tell a story, or you had some dungeon crawlers, but there was always an element missing. So like those early Ultima games look like ass, compared to a console game at the time.
Right. None of them did this as lushly as the original Legend of Zelda did. And how do I want to describe this? The gameplay wasn't representative. It wasn't like some of the early RPGs where you bump into enemies and it does some calculations and takes some numbers off.
The gameplay is not really there.
You're swinging a sword, and the sword connects and hits the enemy, and
hear it.
That's how damage is done. I mean, this sounds like it's something so simple and stupid to say now, but that was a big deal at the time.
The Octorok shoots a rock at you, it bounces off your shield. You hear it.
It's taking a lot of the imagination work we all had to do with early video games and role-playing games, and it's putting it right there on the screen for you. It's one of the first times you're truly seeing everything represented.
Sure. Full story. Full gameplay. We sort of gloss over the fact that like the NES sound was like leagues ahead of consoles before that, like leagues ahead of everything else before that. We almost forget that. Forget about the PC and your freaking PC speaker of the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And not many people even had the ad-lib that came out. What was that? The ad-lib came out like without looking, 80, I want to say 86, 87, but not a lot of games would feature it yet. Or So like even with that, you're playing catch up. The NES sort of brought it all together, and the Legend of Zelda brought it even a step further in terms of like storytelling than Super Mario Brothers did. Because Super Mario Brothers is a platformer, right? You have like, a minute of play at a time from stage to stage, right? Roughly a minute of time. We'll say you go through it, and the biggest story is, hey, you're trying to rescue the princess, and you keep fighting the same Bowser, and Toadstool says, get the hell out of here. She's not here. That's your story. This is a world that you could go in and out of, and again, with full like sound effects, a great score that you couldn't do on other consoles like that to that extent. All the different items, you could play how you wanted to. You can take your time. You can just screw around and just see what's out there. You can solve the puzzles at your own pace. So again, these were all done in certain degrees in other games, but not all together in one package like this.
Right.
This was it to a lot of people. Like this is like the transformative sort of game to a lot of people because of that. And it was a magical experience at the time.
Yeah, like you said, it just, and we discussed this a little bit when we discussed what would it look like without Nintendo. But it was, I don't know, kind of one of those defining games that showed that Mario showed that there could be more depth to games than just arcade games, but then Zelda doubled that.
Sure. Ad-lib, let's see, the first
87.
Ad-lib, 87. So, yeah, they're not even there yet. NES is way ahead of them.
Yeah.
Way ahead of the computer. And God, please no one bring up a freaking ColecoVision game or something like, oh, this game you could... No, nothing was close to Legend of Zelda. We would be discussing it.
But what about Adventure?
Hey, you had to start somewhere with Adventure and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Target, but you see, like, yeah, we're talking... This fulfills the promise of what a video game could be to a lot of people without us even realizing it. We didn't... Before I played Legend of Zelda, on my NES, I had like Spy Hunter and Atari Warriors and Super Mario Brothers, which was mind-blowing. But even like you're talking about 2 arcade games and one game that was one of the best games ever for a reason. So you get Legend of Zelda, like I don't remember asking for it. I just knew I wanted it because this is before. Remember, this is a full year.
I didn't ask for it either. That was one of those games that I got because my parents wanted it.
So I got mine spring of '88. Remember, Nintendo Power didn't come out till summer of '88. You just had the Fun Club, and I only had the one free issue they sent you when you like mailed the at the last issue. So I must have saw it in Fun Club because that dumb commercial wouldn't have sold it to me with the voice of Buster Bunny going Zelda, Zelda, and wearing all black. Like I don't remember how I got it, but I got it with my sister, and my father bought it for us. I believe from Kitty City, and the fact that it was in gold lets you know that this was special. This is not just any other video game as well.
This is high class.
We're spending the money to put it in a gold cartridge. Like Nintendo did that for a reason, a specific reason. They could have put it in a gray cartridge and it would have sold probably just as well. But the fact that they put it in a gold cartridge and they showed you the gold cartridge. They showed it with a little die cut on it.
The advertising worked on young Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that die cut though. That's why I love that box. With the little cutout in it.
I mean, like when you think about it, Nintendo knew they had something. They knew that they would wow you once you got it in your hands, but we're still talking about 87. So it's like the NES is finally starting to get out to everyone in 87, and we really have to let people know this is something special. And yeah, that was did they do that again besides Zelda 2 to do the die cut? No. I don't think they did that.
I think so. I thought Zelda 2 had a die cut.
Yeah, besides that, I mean.
Oh, no, I don't think there was any other game that did. I can't think of
no other colored game. That was a licensed game. Once you go to South America, they use the gold cards for that.
I actually kind of want that.
What was it, World Cup and Tetris? What was it?
No, it's Nintendo World Cup and Super Spike V-Ball.
Why the hell I've never bought that before? I saw it at Portland a few years ago. They wanted like $90 for them. I was like, that's a little. I should have bought it.
It used to be cheaper than that too, and now it's probably more expensive. But I actually really like both those games.
It's just they had shells left over. We're gonna put them in gold.
It's silly. Yeah, it's silly.
It's silly.
I kind of wanted that.
So what are your first Zelda memories, Ian?
My first Zelda memories are I remember looking at the poster the poster that came with Nintendo's with all the screenshots on it. And I remember my dad having interest in Zelda 2. Zelda 2 is actually where we started. And I remember going to the Toys R Us the one day with my mom.
You didn't want to grow up yet.
And my brother. And I think she was like getting I think I had to get like a birthday gift for someone's birthday party that I was going to or something like that. Man, that was a racket. That's a racket back in the day. I don't know if they still do that. I mean, there's no, but all those like school parties, like have all your friends over, like have the whole class over and make them all buy you fucking toys and shit. Holy fuck.
I wasn't going to get 12 different presents from my parents. Are you kidding me? It was the best thing ever. That's probably how I got my one little mask, little green motorcycle guy. That was probably some kid that, it was like $5, buy it for him. Fucking the best thing ever. But you fed him ice cream cake or a little bowling alley trip.
Sure. So anyway,
it is.
I remember my mom grabbing Zelda 2 for my dad because it was on the shelf and I knew she was having trouble finding it. So it was around the time of where that game was impossible to buy, and he was sick, so she bought it for him. She was like, "Hey, your dad's sick, I'll get him this game." So we played it and loved it, and then Zelda 1 came after, and the thing that I know I've said it on here before, but the thing I always remember is how deeply into those games my parents got. I loved Zelda 2. I did not get into Zelda 1 as much as they did, but the amount of maps that they drew, the hand-drawn maps, the notes, I wish I still had the binders of everything they did for the Zelda games, both the first and the second.
For like dungeons, because they had the overworld map.
Well, they came with it. Yeah, but they would always map out shit that they were doing on paper, and they played a lot of D&D too. So this was This was second nature for them.
So for them, this is like, holy shit, this blew their mind.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This would have been like, this would have been a few years after they had stopped their last campaign, because I remember they took a break after I was born. So they hadn't been playing D&D or whatever, and then this comes along and just absolutely blew their minds. And I remember watching my dad beat Ganon and all that. And like I said, I played Zelda 2, but Zelda 1, I had far more fun watching my dad play Zelda 1 than I did ever playing Zelda 1.
And the fact that this was a game, an NES game that you came back to. Like,
sure.
This I mean, yeah, I guess you could do it with what's it, Kid Icarus and Metroid with the password saves before this.
Yeah.
But the fact that, hey, we're giving you a battery. You can do up to 3 different people can play it. That
so many modern games don't even give you like 3 save slots anymore. You get 1.
But the more I think about Legend of Zelda, I don't think we gave this game enough credit. Looking back on all the stuff this game did at the time, I think we almost not say we're underestimating it, but this did a lot more, I think, than we give it credit for. We gloss over some of these aspects of this game when we probably shouldn't.
I feel like, so what I want to say, and it's kind of hard for me to phrase, but I feel like it probably was given plenty of credit, but as a kid that had access to games and was not aware of the timeline of these games being released, I don't think I realized how important that game was at the time, because I had games, especially now my youth memories, they're all a mush. I had games like Zelda and Zelda 2 and Dragon Warrior all within close proximity of each other at the same point in time that I was playing stuff like Clu Clu Land and Kung Fu. So to me, it was just different kinds of games existed. I didn't quite realize the importance of the evolution of something from Pac-Man to Zelda. To
me, because Clu Clu Land is still Pac-Man, but it looks cuter.
Right. Right. But see, I just thought it was different types of games, different strokes for different folks.
I didn't realize that there was
quite this bit
effort.
Right. That's
polish. And full soundtrack, the items, the story.
And that is something that when I do take a minute to think back on it, I go, oh shit, that probably was pretty
the
huge.
overworld map itself in that game, and how when you actually look at it, it's actually logical with where things are placed.
Sure.
With the shoreline, the east woods, the west, deadwoods, the graveyard, the map. It makes sense. They had to map that out and have it make somewhat of sense.
I'm thinking about how
I'm putting where all the dungeons are. Although,
I'm just thinking about how my dad's mind has been blown by video games like twice now, like with Zelda, and then now with when he got back into games and started playing something like Skyrim, which is the extreme evolution of something like Zelda.
Yeah, and with Zelda.
But I'm sure that's what Zelda was back then. It was the holy shit.
There were other games probably like it in the NES era, but it was probably the first and biggest where if other kids had this game, it's like, since you could stop and save it and play it over weeks or months, you could ask, hey, where are you at in the game? Oh, I'm here. Oh, this is... So it was the first
ongoing story, not a singular experience.
And you could share that
Yeah.
So much more than a game like Super Mario Brothers, where I can get to level 1-4.
You can
Okay,
share secrets and stuff like that on the playground about Mario, but yeah,
it's not to the same degree.
Zelda was a different kind of conversation.
Yeah, it's not like, did you know in this you can get the bomb case? What's a bomb case?
Right.
What? I got to go back and look. It's a totally different experience. And we're not even talking about the second quest, how they put the second quest in, which is entirely different experience. It's so much harder and brutally hard, because I remember playing it and me yelling at Rue back and forth about him trying to guide me years and years back for charity, beating the second quest. So yeah, it's that's why when I see all these modern, where does Zelda rank? It doesn't age well, and I just want to strangle the Zoomer that probably said that, but because you can still go back and play Legend of Zelda and be wowed by it, and that's not just me talking about it. You can still be, if you can't be wowed by Legend of Zelda, something's wrong, because it's very hard to find a flaw in that game, looking back and playing it now. Because even if you start from scratch, you can still play how you want. You can play in a certain order without getting stuck. You can go out of your way to get a lot of like the 3 or 4 heart containers before you even reach the first or second stage. You can do a lot of these different things, and sort of make it your own play, it's your own sandbox. That's sort of, do what you want, have fun. And it's such a great enough story that we're going to continue it, retelling the same story 15 times, basically. So,
all right. Well,
that's it.
That's the old
happy birthday, Legend of Zelda. You can run for president now.
That's the old Legend of Zelda.